Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Anton and I have got a mission to speak with all the Aussie female black belts. So today we have one of them for you. She is a pioneer of jiu-jitsu in Australia. She's an OG. She's been to ADCC twice. She's won No Gi Worlds at purple belt, and she received her black belt, I think it was the end of last year or beginning of this year, Fee. She trains out of Courage Training Centre in Townsville, and she is Fiona Muxlow. Thanks for joining us.
Woohoo. Hello. Wow, what a mission. What was it like getting your black belt? Was that like I don't know how I'm going to be when I get mine one day, but what was your experience
Well,
like?
it was kind of good because it was a sneaky one. Like some people get told they're testing for it and whatever. We didn't. We had Jake come over from the States, who's one of our black belts over there, and he came to do seminars and stuff, and he was there for like 5 days and then seminars, and basically the 4 nights leading up to the seminar, 4 of the brown belts were awarded their black belt, and I was the first one of the 4.
Amazing.
So, and my coach is out the front doing this speech about when he was a young army bloke 17 years ago and he came to training and I kicked his butt, and and he's like, come get your black belt. It's all online, and I like swore and stuff like that.
And Fee, can you tell our listeners, how long were you a brown belt for?
Brown belt wasn't too long, wasn't as long as I was a purple belt. I was a purple belt for 11 years, possibly 12. Brown belt, I was brown belt. It's written down over there. I've written on a keychain with the little stripes. But brown belt was about 3 years, like
I must be thinking of
pandemic
purple.
hit.
Yeah,
it was purple that I had, like purple. I did the world. Purple was when I was doing a lot of MMA fighting too. So I fought, I did worlds, I had time off. So even though it was like 11, 12 years, there was like a 2 or 3 year period that I wasn't training at all. I did have my gear in the car every single day, just in case I was going to step back on the mat. And then one day I did. But yeah, it was, so purple belt, took me purple belt I was purple belt for quite a long time, partly because, you know, the journey took me to the MMA side of things, and then the club that I was at kind of disintegrated in the, what does your cup say? Sorry, I'm being distracted.
My cup says, I'm not here to be right, which is so ironic because like, I absolutely am here to be right.
That was the most.
Okay, now I know what says I'm fine. I read things, I get distracted by things. It's like rolling with people with tattoos. I'm like, ooh, look at pretty pictures. Where I was up to, so I the club that I was training at, I just signed with Invicta, and then they decided they weren't going to do MMA anymore.
Right.
So I kind of packed my bags and went to Thailand and trained at Tiger Muay Thai and MMA for a bit, and then I had some fights, and then I came back to Australia, and then I kind of wandered around for a bit, going from training, you know, 3 times a day to maybe once or twice a week doing an open mat type of thing, and just trying to find the club that would be right for me. And also that, you know, I fought MMA, I fought at Worlds, I won Worlds, I came back, and then I'm like, I've got nowhere to go. And it took me some time to actually step back on the mat and actually want to step back on the mat, because I spent all this time and energy, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? And then find where I wanted to train, and then I'd only go and train the no-gi days, so I didn't have to put my belt on, because it was like 2-3 years off. I'm like, I don't feel like a purple belt, I don't want to. And then training there, and then being able to be confident to put my belt back on and remember, like, not necessarily be able to say what I'm doing, but my body remembered what it was doing. So, and then doing that, and then getting awarded my brown belt, and then getting awarded my black belt, and now I'm like doing teaching of the women's class at my gym and teaching the kids, and maybe even thinking about getting back into competing.
Wow. Wow. First of all, I just love your authenticity. Like that is just so amazing to hear that story because that's so many of us, like maybe not as long in those gaps, but there'll be distractions. There'll be things that take us off the path. There'll be that, like that anxiety of coming back. There'll be all of these kinds of factors that really like all of us experience it in some form, I think, you know. And then like what I'm fascinated by is because most people come in through MMA, I find like UFC or whatever, according to our podcast data. And then they get sick of getting punched in the face, and then they end up just doing jiu-jitsu, right? So you kind of went the other way. You started off with jiu-jitsu. What called you into MMA? What did MMA hold for you that wasn't there in jiu-jitsu for you?
Well, actually, when I first started, the club that I first started training in, my first day of like real training, I don't class the Tai Chi I did in grade 11 and 12 as a relaxation thing, as a martial arts, really. It wasn't. It was like a wellness course or whatever. But the first club that I trained at was actually called Renshinkan Ballet Tudo. So
wow.
I do a third of the day was punching and kicking, a third, and then we'd have one session a week at the PCYC on the judo mats. So when I actually started, I started doing Vale Tudo and MMA with jiu-jitsu as part of everything.
Wow.
So as a white belt, I fought as a jiu-jitsu white belt, I fought Kyokushin karate, I fought sambo, I fought pankration.
What?
Wow. For moving into the MMA. And yeah, you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to get hit in the head anymore. I've had a few concussions, not in the MMA realm, but just simply like riding my bike into the back of cars and stuff like that. And after a while, you're like, yeah, I'm going to save the brain cells that I've got left.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it was, but that was before, you know, my introduction to MMA was watching Pancras and the you know, with Ken Shamrock and the Moon Boots and Larry Papadopoulos and Shuto and Smack Girl, and that was before UFC, before women were allowed to do the UFC. So my goal was always to fight in Japan. Everyone's like, oh, do you want to fight UFC? It's like, no, I want to fight in Japan. I want to rise up out of the floor like Ensign Inoue. And
amazing.
that was like the first video I ever watched. Like we had a club night and we watched all these videos, and it's like him rising up out of the floor to, I can't remember who he was fighting. Might have been Randy Couture. I don't know. It was a long time ago. All I remember was him rising up out of the floor and then his dog licking the blood off the mat at the end of the night.
Wow.
I'm sure you can find that somewhere. It was amazing. VHS tapes as well. So that's how long ago it was.
That is amazing. And for our listeners, Ballet Tudo is like, it's anything goes fighting, right? That's what Ballet Tudo is. So it's like,
Ballet Tudo was basically, UFC is Ballet Tudo with rules, even though it was billed as no rules. It was basically the grandpa of UFC.
Yeah, amazing.
And Fee, you fought Cris Cyborg at Invicta. Yeah, so can you tell us about that?
Oh, she didn't tell you about that, Anton.
Yeah. I should have introed you with that. So that's
she tells me nothing, and I like it that way. But you know, it's like these surprises are amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
And do you want to share your screen, Anton? Like with just Google that, and we can. Yeah. Sorry, go on, Fee.
So basically, what was the question? I fought Cris Cyborg. I was her first fight back after her drug ban.
Yeah.
So basically, it was when I was training in Thailand at Tiger Muay Thai, and it was freaky because we were going somewhere in Phuket and we were going over the hills and we were doing Thai style, and I'm like, I don't like this. I would rather be fighting Cris Cyborg. And then 2 days late, because I was supposed to fight Julia Budd, and 2 days later I got an email saying Cyborg's opponent has pulled out, would you like to fight Cris Cyborg? And it's like, what have I really got to lose? Maybe my consciousness, but so yeah, I trained up and I did that and stepped in the ring, and I didn't tap. Big John had to stop it, but he stopped it.
Big John McCarthy.
If he hadn't stopped it, I wouldn't have minded. But
Big John McCarthy.
Like, I'm going to accept what the referee says. I would have kept going if you hadn't have stopped it, but who knows how bad it might have been after that.
Wow. So you've also had Big John McCarthy referee a match of yours. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I got to fight in Japan. The fight before that, I fought Marlos Cohen, and I got to rise up out of the floor at Smarter Super Arena on the New Year's Eve show, The Dream. So it was like, this is cool.
Wow.
I told you I'd bring the OGs, Anton. So
Oh, my
Fee's as
Lord.
OG as it gets.
Wow. You,
Yeah.
you could be the OGest of the OGs. Like, we've had other people on who've done some pretty cool stuff. But wow, you've done some cool stuff. What's your do you have a favorite memory of all of these? Do you have something that really stands out? And it doesn't have to be big. It could be something little, but is there something that you just like have such fondness for that gets your hair standing on end? And it's fine if you don't.
That whole rising up out of the floor in Japan, that was pretty cool. Like, because I remember watching that the first time I'd ever watched videos, and it's like, I want to do that one day.
You visualized
so
it,
like,
and then it was happening.
Yeah, well, that was like Tokyo Dome probably would have been. I'm getting goosebumps now. So probably fighting in Japan, because that was something that for a long time, it's like my goal was to fight in Japan, whether it was to get onto the Smack Girl promotion before that. Disappeared, but you know, I had so bad, Leanne, the announcer, that woman announcer.
Oh wow!
Yes. She said my name.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
Yeah, and
wow.
Now I'm going to be really bad because I'm Facebook friends with her and we chat all the time on it.
That's okay. If you know her name, Leanne, that's good enough. You're so close. It's like first name basis only. That's why.
Yeah. But yeah, probably that. And the other thing that was really cool was like when I was ADCC the second time, I was traveling with this little stuffed koala called Walter. He has a Facebook page. Kim's met Walter before. He's still around. He's sitting on my shelf over there. Yeah. But I was rather than
I'm just sharing screen.
Yeah. Okay, you're looking up my fight history. Yeah, so at ADCC, I didn't want to be like, oh, no, probably the funnest thing was after the first ADCC I went to in Trenton was us girls were mucking around afterwards in the ballroom that they had set up for warm-ups and that. We're just rolling, and next thing you know, Salo Rivero comes in and he's a little bit drunk because it was the after party. And he's like, oh, can I roll with you? And I did this sweep on him. And every time someone came in, he's like, check out this sweep this trick just did on me. And I'm sure he was very, very drunk, and it wasn't the best sweep in the world, but it's like I had to do it like 4 times because he's like, check it out. So
that's so good. Actually, that reminds me of a friend of Kim's and mine. His name's Brenton. He's a black belt, and he's known as the party grappler because every time he gets drunk, he just has to roll with everybody at the party. I don't know if he's still doing that.
Now we have rules disallowing any grappling at parties because of him, I think. So, yeah. Yeah.
What have we got? Okay,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, look at this fight record.
Yeah, sorry, Fee. I glossed over your whole MMA career, didn't I? Because I guess we're more of a jiu-jitsu podcast, but yeah, you've definitely like put your stamp on MMA for female Australians as well as like your history. So, because when did you actually start jiu-jitsu? Can you tell us a little bit about the beginnings of like how you found it? And
yeah, basically, oh, my aircon just turned on. Do you need me to turn that off? Can you hear that?
No, we're good. We're down here in Melbourne in the cold, so we're
I know I need it. I've got the doors closed so you can't hear the geese and the cows and that in the background.
And the crocodiles. I don't know what sound they make.
It's like 25, 26 degrees up here at the moment. That's winter in Townsville.
No.
So I started MMA. I started, like I said, I did some pancras originally, and which is a Greek style of mixed martial arts, which allows the punching and kicking, but there's certain things that you can do on the ground, certain things that you can't. And then I was approached by a promoter in New Zealand for a fight that they were doing in Princesses of Pain, which was a 8-woman tournament. So my
what year was this, Fee? How long ago?
That was before I won at Worlds. So that would have been just after my first ADCC experience. So
did you go to ADCC in 2005, 2007? When did you go?
2007, 2011.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep.
I missed, there was a break in between. So I think it must have been 2007 was my MMA starting.
Yeah, yeah.
Because basically I went and I did ADCC, and then I trained at the Raw Center with Rico Ciparelli, and that for a bit, going back to heading into New Zealand to go over for the first Princesses of Pain. And then the second one was like a year or so later, might have been 2 years later, and that was just a one-off fight because that was like a team event. So we had 8 women from Australasia, so Australia and New Zealand, in different weight classes, and 8 women from the US. One of who was Steven Spielberg? No, Amanda Lucas, George Lucas's daughter, who also cameoed in Star Wars movies. For any Star Wars fans out there, she used to fight MMA. She's had a baby since then. I don't think she's fighting anymore. But I did that. Then I had a fight. So after I'd had 4 fights, I had my first fight in Australia, which was on brace. Then I did, just trying to work out the order, whether I did brace for girls, and then I fought Denny Haywood, and then I fought Marlowe's Cohen, and then I fought Cyborg.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to quickly just, like, you can talk us through some of this, but I just found all of these amazing photos of you. So
Okay.
So
that's what I was talking about with the screen sharing.
Yeah, like look at you. You feel free to interject at any time, but you are.
That was me trying not to get hit by Cyborg. That one hurt. I remember that one going, oh, because the first thing, she just came out and she just bopped me on the nose.
Yeah.
And like, this was my 9th fight. And it was the first time ever anyone had made me bleed in a fight.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
What a shot.
Yeah, she's a bit of a freight train. Like that fight, I was training with Roger Werter in Thailand, and because he's American, he doesn't understand kilos. And I was telling him my weight, and he's like, oh, we need to do this and this to drop my weight. And then I was at the hospital getting my medical done, and I came out and I said my weight, and he's like, what do you mean you only weigh that? And I'm like, I've been telling you the entire time. And so basically this morning of the weigh-in, if you go back to I was fed, like I didn't have to drop any water weight. I was eating food to stay in the weight class. Because I just got to the point, and I really wish I was at that point right now. It just seems to be going up rather than down. But it's like I had breakfast, I had lunch, we had the food weighed out, we had the water weighed out. It's like, and then Cyborg, you can see she's dehydrated down, and the next day she was just like, whoop. It was actually fun. We're sitting in there, and they're doing the entire briefing, and because Roger hadn't been back in America for like 5 years or something, we're doing the briefing, and next thing you know, and you can watch this online, Big John McCarthy's signing him and goes, hey Roger, nice to have you back in the country, or something like that. It was just, it was that one. These ones are Japan, with Marlowe's Conan. I take solace in the fact that her knee that she'd been in the head with was still sore a month afterwards, because I saw her at Invicta and she told me.
Wow.
Hard head.
So wow. So you need her, and she was still sore a month later.
No, she needed me.
She needed
She needed you. All right. Oh, that's a nasty.
My head's pretty hard. But she did end up getting me with the armbar.
Speaking of injuries, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think you're probably like the definition of resilience in terms of, you know, keep going through in the jiu-jitsu journey despite injuries. You've had a few. Can you share with some of our listeners about your injury journey?
Yeah, basically every 10 years my body decides that I only need one knee, and it decides to
pack it in.
break. So the first 2 years was as a white belt. I was playing guard and with another white belt, and he had his arm in a certain position and then kind of jumped around past the guard and snapped my ACL. Not my ACL, sorry, my MCL, but I didn't do any meniscus damage or anything like that. So, and that was a broken finger actually, was what put me like back 6 months for starting to compete. And then I did that with Kevin, and we it snapped it, and I went to walk off the mat, my legs like wobbly like this, and it's like and then about 10 years later, I was competing at the Abu Dhabi Pro Trials, and one of the girls from New Zealand went to do this judo throw on me, and I countered, but the mats were really new and slippery, and my foot went out and my knee went straight down. Ow. So I did my ACL again a second time. That was low battery, sorry about that. Let me plug you guys in.
Yeah, no
so we don't die halfway through. And then so I busted my knee, and that I was supposed to go to Pan Am's. I had tickets booked and everything for that, and then I had to, ringing up Jess Fraser at the time, going, "I'm gonna go, I busted my knee." So I switched my ticket to the Worlds, and that was the year I got bronze in the gi at the Worlds as purple belt. I'd only just come out of my knee brace leading up into that, so I was all like taped up and everything. And then in November 2023, September 21, I was training, and one of the big guys that I don't usually train with, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to work resisting guards and sweeps and stuff like that, and I have my knee in the wrong position. It just slipped even worse. And this 100-kilo guy came down on the side of my knee, because the standing pass, where you get knees in the butt and you shake it down. He just came down, it just went crunch, and I did my ACL, my MCL, my meniscus. I had a compression fracture in the bone. Went to the hospital in an ambulance, sucking on the green whistle and all that. Drove home the next morning though. I have a manual car. But I was just really lucky in that, because I'd done my MCL twice before. I'm like Googling what are my exercises to do for rehab for that. Didn't want surgery. Shit scared of surgery. Put me in the ring with Cyborg. That's fine. Put me under anesthetic. No way. I don't want to do that. And so I ended up on the waiting list, because I still don't have private health. I probably should get that to the hospital, but ended up on the waiting list for surgery. Went to the physio, started doing rehab on it, was back on the mat about 9 weeks after doing it. Just rolling from back and rolling from side control. And luckily, because I'd injured the same knee twice previous, I had movement patterns that I knew were safe for me to do. Like certain positions I could do and they wouldn't hurt. Other positions, it's like holding mount on someone who is quite a lot thinner than me. I couldn't do that because I put too much weight on the knee joint. Whereas if I roll with someone who was slightly bigger, and it's like, well, if they get me into guard, I can play guard, or then I can stop and go back and just work the things that I could, let someone get back control and just work on my defenses for back control, not necessarily escapes to start off with. And then by about 6 months in, I'm like, I kind of don't want surgery, because I was back doing everyday stuff normally. About 9 months in, it's like, I definitely don't want surgery. I don't think I need it. And 12 months in, I had a updated MRI done, and the ligament had actually fused back together.
How cool is your body? Woo! That's an amazing thing.
But I have had lots of ligament damage throughout my career. Like, I had my elbow popped at Worlds as a purple belt, because I didn't tap, and I was going to tap, and then the pain stopped. So I kept going, and it turned out the pain stopped because she ripped the ligament.
I know all about that.
So.
Same here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm almost going to tap and then it stops hurting. You're like, well, I won't tap. I'll just keep going. I went and played on trapeze the day after that, you know,
Oh my
and it
God.
wasn't until I got back to Australia and I'm holding this, you know, 180 gram tin of tuna in the supermarket line. I'm like, I couldn't hold my arm up in my bicep curl. It's like, I might go get that looked at.
Wow.
So yeah, different things healing up, but that also means that arthritis tends to jump into other bits. So things heal really well. So there's always something on the other end. But yeah, so I did that. That was September. And then I was awarded my black belt in November.
Yeah.
Wow. So what I mean, just going kind of to wrap, because we've got like 6 minutes left,
6
right?
minutes.
But I'm really keen to know.
Sorry.
No, it's great.
That's
This has
why you're
been-
here.
I ramble.
No, not at
Go.
all. I'm hanging on every word. You're a machine. Like, what drives you to compete? What drives you to get in a ring or whatever with Cyborg, to compete in jiu-jitsu, like to continually put yourself in harm's way? Like, what's driving you? What started driving you? What still drives you?
Maybe I'm a little bit of a bully. It's a good way. No, it's a good way of expressing yourself. You know, it's a way of challenging yourself, but it's safe because, you know, the fact I had stepping in the ring and then I'm like, well, my referee's going to be Big John McCarthy. I know he'll keep me safe. You know, same as jiu-jitsu. It's a safe form. It's play fighting. There's that safety. Like one of our guys is training for a fight and turned up at lunchtime fast. It was me and 2 other guys, and it's like, well, can you put the gloves on and just try and try and hold me down and guard? And I'm starting to do it. And it's like, you know what you're doing, because he's never seen me fight, because he started training after I stopped fighting. He's like, you hold me down and punch me. People either do one or the other. It's like, you know what you're doing. It's like, yeah, I can't help you with the stand-up stuff, but I'll help you with this.
Cool.
So it's just fun. Is that a bad answer?
It's a perfect answer. You're doing it just because.
And now,
it's
like,
fun. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you get to a point where it's like, okay, you know, ego's a big bit right at the start, and you don't want to lose, so there's all that as well, which is probably the whole like getting my arm broken because I didn't want to tap. But after a while, it's like, you can do jiu-jitsu, you can do it till you're old. You know, pick your training partners, be smart about it, know your limitations, push them on occasion. But it's like, I know for me now, inverting wasn't really something I ever did. But, you know, I've got injuries and stuff where I work a different game. And that's the thing about jiu-jitsu. You can work the game that works for your body, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I'm just lucky with the injuries I've had. I've kind of been able to modify my game, and I can kind of tell what injury I have with how I do this pass, because of when I learn it, this bit of my body didn't work. And this, so sometimes I'm left-handed and sometimes I'm right-handed, and it's not because I'm left or right-handed.
That reminds me of a tree with like bark. You know, when a tree gets damaged and it impacts the bark, and then you can look at the tree 1,000 years later and you can see the life of this tree.
The storms and where bits are broken off.
Oh, that's
so
right.
what you're saying is I'm an old tree.
Yeah, kind of. But
not an old tree. You're younger than us, Fee. You're still younger than us. So.
I don't know. How old are you guys?
I'm 50.
I'm 48.
Yeah.
Okay, I am younger than you. I'm 46.
Yeah.
So,
We'd change your nappy. You could be our child.
2 years, not quite 2 years. But one of my favorite things to do is when people come to jiu-jitsu and, you know, I'll roll with them or whatever, and they're like, oh, how long have you been doing this? And now I can just look at them and say, longer than you've been alive.
Yeah, that's it.
I found a photo the other day of me back in 2000 when I moved to Melbourne. On the way to Melbourne, I stopped in Sydney because it was the Sydney Olympics, and Randy Couture and Dan Henderson were there as mentors for the American Olympic team, and I did a seminar with them. And I've got this photo, and it's like 23-year-old me, and it's just like so. And this was before he started MMA, because I got to watch him learn how to kick from Cameron Quinn. It was do a kicking session with Cameron Quinn. So there's all these OG names that it's like when things were little, you know, like going and doing my CrossFit certification when I won ADCC, because it was a trip to the States, and it's like, get me on this course. And no, that one I paid for, but John Hackelman was there, so Chuck Liddell's coach, and I got to go and train at their gym. So it was, there's stories, there's lots of stories.
You're gonna have to come back on, actually.
We do. We haven't even talked about the CrossFit either. So yeah, there's a whole other episode here that we could definitely do. So thank you so much for giving up your time, Fee. It took us a little while to get there. Anton, you don't know, I've been trying to do this for probably 6 months with Fee. We finally got it happening. So thank you so much again. We'll have this episode out. It'll be a couple of weeks because we've got a few others kind of banked up. But when we do, if you could share it on your platform, on your social media, that would be really awesome. Help us grow our audience up in Townsville and throughout Australia. So thank you so much once again. And we look forward to seeing you back on the mats. Hopefully come back and compete, Fee, so that we can have your goodness coming our way.
I want to watch you in action. I really do. Take care, Fee. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.